and they keep that. So I would suggest that you may write that down, or you can put that in your phone. What is the purpose of my life? And write down your answer, because we're going to revisit that after a little while. Okay? What is the purpose of my life? Would anybody like to share? Whatever that happens, whatever you think that is. I mean, it's not right or wrong. It's like whatever you think your purpose is. Yeah.
To have a purposeful life.
To have a purposeful life. Purpose after purpose. That's good. What might that purpose be? Could we be more specific? Okay, if that's what your answer is, then let it be. Inshallah, we'll continue in this session, and then we'll revisit these answers. Yes? To please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, mashallah. Very good. Any others? Is there any way to communicate with the ladies? Because it's very important we get their feedback. So they can write something, or they could share through microphone, or whatever you think is appropriate. If that's appropriate, some communities don't like to do that, some do. I don't have a problem with any of that. But I want their feedback, because their feedback is very important.
I understand. Yes.
Yeah.
We'll get that taken care of.
Okay? Yeah. Any others would like to share? Yeah. To know Allah, Jalla Jalaluhu. Yeah? Others? To worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes? Huh? To succeed in deen and dunya. Okay. Wonderful. You know, the interesting thing is that this question, you know, it's very interesting. The more that we ask the people who are supposed to be, quote unquote, educated, right? You know, with degrees, stuff like that. So the more we find that they don't have an answer. And usually it's like, I don't know. I'm trying to find that. Or a lot of the times we say, it doesn't even matter. So what? You know, live the life and just, you know, do what you have to do and, you know, get through the day. So it's very interesting that we find, according to common knowledge, or conventional knowledge as they call it, people generally don't have an answer to this question. And I can guarantee you, if you're not connected with the Creator, you're not going to have an answer to this question. That's for sure. Juxtaposed to that, if I go to any village in a Muslim country, right, like in Pakistan or in any Arab country or any place, and you just take a small kid from the village and ask him, you know, why did Allah create? What are you doing here? And you know, if he's like an Arab kid, he'll say, لِيَعْبُدَ رَبِّي. Say it. He said, to worship my Creator. Because he learned that very early on. If we go to Pakistan and we ask this kid, say, Allah ke ibadat ke liye. For the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now a PhD cannot answer the question, but a small kid in the village can answer the question. Why? How is that? Because the answer to this question is not answerable through the human intellect. Human intellect has limits, contrary to what people seem to think these days. But our intelligence is as limited as our sight, as our hearing, as our physical strength. You know, we're not all powerful with our intelligence. We have unique intelligence that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. And we talk about that in another whole module. Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us intelligence, and how we're supposed to use that? That's a whole session. So unless we are instructed, unless we are informed by our Creator why He created us, there's no way for the human mind to actually understand that. So before we see what did the Creator tell us about that, I have a sort of a concept which I call a paradigm inversion. How many people have heard of a paradigm shift? Paradigm shift? Okay. So paradigm shift is like, you know, we have a perception, and we shift it here. Okay? Paradigm inversion is like we have a perception and we have to. There's a lot of things in life that we've been conditioned to see or think, and we really have some serious issues where we need some serious thinking and some serious change. So in my little short life, I've come to the conclusion that there's basically, with all these various perceptions and, worldviews as they call it, there's basically two. So the first one, I call it the material paradigm. In other words, it's all about what we see. Like I was mentioning yesterday, with the small kid, we put him in the elementary school. Why? Because he can get in a good middle school. Why? Because he can get in a good college. Why? So he gets a good job. Why? So he can get a lot of money. Why? So he can be happy. Sorry, folks, it doesn't work that way. You see? So basically, the whole, focus is on material things, external. House, car, bank account, title, degrees, all this kind of stuff. So the whole life is based on material, getting material, using material, thinking that that's where success lies. Now, if we wanted to graphically illustrate that, so that might look something like this. Yeah. So what do you see there?
Upside down tree.
Upside down tree. What else?
Building behind it.
Yeah, that doesn't work. Yeah, look here. The building, in other words, the whole world is pretty much upside down. Okay, so there's another paradigm, which I call the Ubudiyya paradigm. Now, note this word because we're going to use this a lot. And those of our brothers and sisters who are from the Arab world or Arabic speaking, so they probably have heard this word. It's a very important word in the Arabic language. It's probably the most important word after Lafz al-Jalala and his Asma wa Sifat. Ubudiyya. Probably all of you have heard the word ibadat. Yeah? So basically, we're going to talk about this in detail just in a moment, but just to introduce the concept, we are slaves in this world to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is our master, and we think that we are his slaves. Right? So in other words, rather than thinking that it's all about material, that's the objective in life, the Ubudiyya paradigm says that our objective of life is that we have a master, and we are his slaves, and we are to live a life of slavery so that we please our master and ultimately succeed. Okay? Now, if we want to graphically illustrate that, it kind of looks like this. Now, what do we have? Right side up. In other words, yani, sida ho gaya. It's the way it's supposed to be. Okay, so now let's go back to the objective. Why are we here? So let's see what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, because it's whatever I think or what you think or what anybody thinks really has no significance, because it's what our Creator thinks or what our Creator has told us. So he has actually explained very succinctly what is our purpose, why he's created us. And that is, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وما خلقت الجن والإنس إلا ليعبدون. So in English, kind of a rough translation of that would be something like this: and I, Allah Jalla Jalaluhu, created not the jinn and the mankind except for my continuous ubudiyya. So we want to use that because this is actually liya'budun. We're going to explain this a little bit. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's worship and service. That's why he's created us. That's why we're here. Now we want to go back to the Arabic for just a moment. And we want to focus on this. إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Now, those of us who understand the Arabic language a little bit, so we understand that this is a verbal construct, right? لِيَعْبُدُونَ. It's a verb. And in the Arabic language, we call this a fi'l mudari'. Okay, fi'l mudari' it signifies continuity, now and continuously. As we say in Arabic, tajaddud wal istimrar, continuously, and it continues to, to regenerate itself. So ila liya'budun, He has created us to be continuously in a state of servitude. Usually when we hear this word ibadat, oh yeah, salat, zikr, tilawat, and stuff like that, and the rest of their life, rest of the time, hey man, it's my thing, I'll do what I want to do. Like Nike says, just do it. No, I'm sorry, it's not like that. Not at all. Illa liya'budun. It's not just do it, it's illa liya'budun. We are here, liya'budun, for continuous attention to our master and continuous, observance of his servitude. Okay? Having said that, so our ubudiyya basically is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's obedience and servitude out of His love and reverence. Out of His love and reverence. It's not just like we have to. La ikraha fi din. There's no compulsion in deen. Believe or don't believe, huh? Aminu or la tu'minu, huh? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you a choice. Go ahead. You want to believe? Believe. You want to believe? It's your choice. Jibreel alayhi salam is not going to come down with a machine gun and point it at your head and say, aslim, or else, It's not going to work. That's not how it goes. So, basically what it is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not forcing us. He's given us intelligence. He's given us understanding. He's given us eyes and ears and understanding. And we're supposed to use that intelligence primarily to focus on the signs of His presence and the signs of His greatness and majesty and grandeur all around us. For example, look up in the sky. It goes on and on and on and on and on for billions of light years. When's the last time any of us looked at the sky and pondered over it? Today? La khali, mashallah. This week? This month? So did you look at that and think and ponder over that? Yeah, see? And this we're going to actually do an exercise very shortly on this very topic, inshallah. So, if we look at that, billions of light years of expansiveness. Light travels at 186,000 miles per second, right? So that's a second. Now, in a minute, it's traveling how far? 60 times 186,000. This is what? We're already in the millions, right? Okay, an hour. What about a whole day? I mean, forget it. I mean, now, you'd have zeros, extending all around the masjid about 30 times. So when we're talking about a light year, the distance in which light travels in a year's period, it's mind-boggling. You can't even get your head around that. And we're not talking about a light year. We're talking about not 100, 1,000, a million. We're talking about billions of light years of expansiveness. I mean, the light has been traveling for billions and billions of years, and it still hasn't reached the other side. Now, who created that? It just happened, you mean to tell me? Come on, this is the most mind-boggling thing that I've heard. Someone looks at all of that and says, it just happened. It just happened, this water bottle, I was just sitting here, one day, and all of a sudden, it just happened. What do you think about that? Is that okay? Can you believe that? Can anybody believe that? It's mind-boggling. And all of that, but somebody can actually believe that? That's mind-boggling. Okay, number one. Number two, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is without need, right? Samad. So why did He create all of that, by the way? I mean, what's the purpose? Yeah. Okay. Huh? To test us. Okay, but specifically all of that, expansiveness. Absolutely. To show us. So we look up at there and think about it, subhanallah. And that subhanallah is supposed to come out of our mouths and go into our hearts. That's it. And whatever's out there, it's for us also. لِتَعْلَمُوا عَدَدَ السِّنِينِ وَالْحِسَابِ. That's how we used to actually, the hisab, Qamar and Shams, the sun and the moon, and the people used to, go by the stars. Who's from Sudan? Anybody from Sudan? No? So, now as we know, even in the sea, they used to navigate by the stars, right? So you got these billions of light years of stars revolving around. It's just so people here on this little tiny earth would be able to navigate. I was mentioning Sudan because once I was, in the early days, on my journey to Islam, so I traveled from Khartoum to Kassala on top of a cargo truck. In the middle of the desert, there was no road in those days. Now I understand there's a road, but in those days there was no road. And it just went through the desert. And these guys were just following the stars. SubhanAllah. So all of that is, so we have been given intelligence to reflect on that, And so, what happens when we look at that, وَفِي أَنفُسِكُمْ أَفَلَا تُبْصِرُونَ, in yourselves, look at us. Do any of us actually deserve to exist? Did anybody sign a petition that, oh Allah, I think I really deserve to exist for whatever reason, and so you should create me? Is anything like that? Or just out of his beneficence, he just, brought us into being, yeah? And then has given us وَآتَاكُم مِّن كُلِّ مَا سَأَلْتُمُوهُ. Whatever we ask, he gives us if it's good for us. And from the amount and how it's good for us. So in light of all of that, when we reflect on all of that, outside of us, inside of us, so we submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala out of love and reverence. Not because we have to, but because we want to. Right? So that means, as one of our brothers rightly said, so that we should know, إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ, as a matter of fact, in books of tafsir, it's written, إِلَّا لِيَعْرِفُونَ. I have created the human beings so that they should come to know me. Because if they know me, then they will worship me. If they don't know me, they definitely would not worship me. That's the problem of humanity now. Why they don't worship Allah? They don't know Him. They don't know Him. Allahu Akbar. Okay. So, ubudiyya is the purpose of our existence. So anybody who would like to go back to the statement, why I'm here, why I've been created. So in light of what we've been talking about, you may want to revise, okay? Now, ubudiyya, there's three very common terms that we all have heard, but we want to ensure that we actually know what they mean. Number one, Islam. What does it mean, Islam? Huh? Submission. Because a lot of times people don't understand it. It means salama or whatever, I don't know. But actually it means submission. So Islam is not a philosophy. It is not a religion, whatever that means. I don't really understand that word. I think people who use it don't understand what it means. That's why we're all confused, right? It's not, it is a state of being, submission. It's not it is a state of being, submitting, So, and submission to Allah, not to ourselves, not to the, to the times or to anyone, submission to Allah. So then we have a Muslim. So what is a Muslim? The one who submits, exactly, because that's what we call an ism fa'il. That's what we call active participle, the person who is actively submitting. So if we're not actively submitting, are we a Muslim? Not exactly. This gets kind of tense when we think about it, right? Because every one of us, if we start looking at ourselves, are we submitting or not? Maybe, maybe not, maybe partially, maybe not fully. So here we need a little clarification because we do have elements out there that, if you're not doing this, you're not doing that, you're not a Muslim, take the guy out, Sorry, that's not how it works. So to illustrate that a little bit better, we have a person who's like in the ICU. He's on life support systems. Heart is beating, brain is working, but he's totally incapacitated. Can't eat, can't drink, can't sleep, can't serve himself. He can't serve his family, has no function in society. Basically useless, other than he's alive. So suppose we look at that situation and say, well, you know what? This guy is just actually, wasting taxpayers' money and people's time and energy and resources. So I think, why don't we just bury the guy, just get done with it. Is that okay? Can we do that? We can't do that? Suppose we do it, then what? Suppose we do that. We just go ahead and bury the guy. Then what happens? What does that make us? Huh? Murderers. Murderers. So we stand to be executed for that. Now we have another person. We have another person who has full strength, vitality, he's beneficial to himself, he runs his family beautifully, he's CEO of a company, might even be the president of the company. So he's alive and he's also alive, but there's a huge difference between the quality of life. So we have Muslims, like me and you and others, we're kind of like, shaky, but we have from, the lowest, which is saying this kalima, at least submission by tongue and at least a tasdeeq by the heart. I believe that there is one Allah and that Muhammad is his prophet and last messenger. Okay? That is also an action. That is also a type of submission, the lowest form, the minimum performance level, if you like. And then we have Muhammadur Rasulullah, the benchmark. So, and everything in between. So we strive for the benchmark and we realize that we're probably pretty far down, so we make it a lifelong struggle, inshallah. Right? So, وَلَا تَهِنُوا وَلَا تَحْسَنُوا وَأَنْتُمْ أَعْلَوْنَ إِن كُنتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. So don't worry, keep making effort, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take us, to the heights of Kamal, inshallah. Okay, the last one that we need to clarify is deen. So what is deen? Way of life. Well, there's a lot of ways of life out there. What way of life? That's right, that's good. Now, let's be more specific. What way of life? Now, if we just think in this context, Islam is submission, Muslim is the one who submits. So what is deen? The whole system of submission. The whole system of submission. Okay? If anybody wants to take a picture, feel free, go ahead. Okay. Now, let's look at the scope a little bit more. All activities of life, everything that we do, from the time we wake up until the time we go to sleep, and even that sleeping period also is an action. It's an activity. And so if that activity happens to be in conjunction with the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the way of Nabi alayhi salam, with the correct niyat, then it becomes an act of ubudiyah. It becomes an ibadah. It becomes an act of servitude, an act of submission. Okay? This is something we need to understand. Now, ibadah. So what's the difference between ibadah and ubudiyah? So ubudiyah is this, as we say in Arabic, a kayfiyah. It's a state of mind and heart, that I'm a slave. So everything I do, every action that I perform is an ibadah. Because I am imbued with ubudiyah, so everything that I do is ibadah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make me and all of us like that. Right? And it's not that difficult to do, it's doable. Right? So all activities of life and all roles in life. We have various roles, right? One role, for example, is our role as salik, abid. Our connecting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on a regular basis. Right? We have a role, if we're men, for example, we're somebody's son, right? So we have a role as a son. If we're a woman, a daughter. If we're married, we're either a husband or a wife. We all have relatives, so we are a relative as well. We have neighbors, so we're also a neighbor as well. We might have a profession or a craft or a trade, so we are a professional whatever. Our trade is whatever. I'm a laborer, I'm an employer, I'm an employee. These are roles. And Islam has definite guidelines and instructions for all of them. Right? So all activities in life and all roles in life, everything that we do, every moment of our existence, we are doing something. And that something that we're doing can be an act of ibadah. And as a result of that, we came up with a whole system of business, which we call the Ubudiyya business model, which I'll just introduce to you later on, to give you an example of what in specific sectors, what can we do to make that actually an act of Ubudiyya. Okay, so the trick of all that is balance. Because we have these various roles in our portfolio as a human being, right? We're an abid, we're a husband, we're a wife, we're a father, we're children, we're somebody's, we have a role as an employee, as an employer, as a craft, in the community, and so forth and so on. So we have multiple roles. And so now, to understand how to perform in those roles according to the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the way of Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam, pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but balancing all those roles at the same time. That's a very tricky thing to do. And for that, we have Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. What does that mean? We have in the example of Rasulullah the best of example. And the interesting thing is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't say in what. He didn't say an example of what. And the reason being is because he's an example for everything. How many people are married? Alhamdulillah. How many of our men, if we sent a pro forma to your wives and we would like them to rate you from 1 to 10, how many of you are pretty certain that you're going to get a 10 rating? And maybe some of the ladies are there, so you be careful. Huh? Sometimes we have people that say, yeah, I'm pretty sure she's going to give me a 10. I said, well, that's great, In coercion or, willingly, I don't know. So actually, I would be the first to say, I don't think I deserve anything near that. So now just imagine, we have one wife and we're having a problem, really dealing with that as it should be dealt with. Now suppose you had 9. Rasulullah at one point had 9 wives. Now if we had sent, that same performer to his 9 wives, then what feedback would they have given? It's not like 10, it's like put another few zeros on it, Subhanallah. 9 wives, and as a perfect husband for 9 wives, come on. That alone is enough to prove the miraculousness of Rasulullah's nubuwah. And if you had so many women that you had to take care of and you had to, treat, with equity and all, then would you have time for anything else, by the way? So was he only a husband? He was Rasul, he was Nabi, he was chief of state, he was commander-in-chief, he was a neighbor, he was a relative, he was a father, he was a husband, he was a neighbor, all perfect, Subhanallah. Sallallahu ta'ala ala hadha nabiy al-kareem. And so therefore, it's very critical for us as Muslims, men and women, that we study his life. Because that's what it's all about. That's where we're going to learn that. We're not going to learn it from any of our, present-day heroes, We're going to learn it from Rasulullah and those who directly learn from him, his companions, men and women, and those who learn from them and so forth, from our aslaf, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all tawfiq. So, if you like, deen is like an operational application of ubudiyya. Okay? This continuous subservience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So is this concept very clear now, inshallah? Ubudiyya, we've got that now? Any questions? No. MashaAllah, what a group. MashaAllah, very wonderful students. Barakallahu fikum. Okay. Now we have a little exercise. And what we're going to do is, this is an example which has been given to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Holy Quran. And I'm just going to read these 2 ayats. We're going to understand these 2 ayats a little bit. and then we're going to do an exercise. So the first ayat is أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ألم تر كيف ضرب الله مثلا كلمة طيبة كشجرة طيبة أصلها ثابت وفرعها في السماء تؤتي أكلها كل حين بإذن ربها ويضرب الله الأمثال للناس لعلهم يتذكرون. Did you not see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala set forth a parable? A goodly saying is a goodly tree, a beautiful, magnificent saying like a goodly tree. And basically what's being referred to here is the example of the kalima, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, in the heart of a mu'min or mu'mina. Okay? So the example of that person is like the example of this tree which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to describe to us. And that tree is like this. Its roots are set firm and its branches are in the sky, bringing forth its fruit at all times. It's not like a one time, one season, one fruit. It's all the time, different types of fruits with different benefits, different tastes, different smells, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sets forth parables for the people that perchance they may reflect, think about it, reflect on it, ponder over that. Okay? Surah Ibrahim, verse 24. Okay, this is the first ayat. So we want to just kind of focus on that, and we'll come back to it in a minute. We have a second ayat that we want to think about, and that is, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم لقد من الله على المؤمنين إذ بعث فيهم رسولا من أنفسهم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة وإن كانوا من قبل لفي ضلال مبين. Indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did confer a great favor upon the believers when He sent among them a messenger from among themselves, Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And this is what He did. This was His JD, if you like. This was His profession. Number one, reciting to them the revelations of Allah. Yatlu alayhim ayatihi. And this is a recitation of da'wat. وذكر بالقرآن من يخاف وعيد وأن أتلو القرآن فمن اهتدى إلى آخره. So this is a reciting, inviting the creation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through da'wat. And the main medium of da'wat was the Holy Quran, هذا بيان للناس. This is an invitation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to humanity. So number one, reciting to them the revelations of Allah, inviting the people, da'wat. Number two, and purifying them, وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ تَزْكِيَةً. We as human beings, we have two natures. We have an animalistic nature, we have an angelic nature. If left alone to his own machination, the human being becomes a beast, like he is today, for most practical purposes. And not only becomes a beast, he becomes the worst of beasts. And we don't want to go into that, otherwise it's horrific, how beastly the human being can be. So therefore, prophets used to come and purify them from their beastly qualities and work on their angelic qualities, develop in humanity angelic qualities. For example, greed. Animals are greedy because it's the nature of survival, right? So replace greed with generosity. Man tends to become angry. He's impatient. So that anger, for the sake of his nafs, for the sake of his ego, etc., to be controlled and learn sabr and learn hilm. So that's a process. It's a very delicate process, but it's a very critical process. This is called tazkiyah. So this is the second effort of Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam, tazkiyah. Thirdly, وَيُعَلِّمُ الْكِتَابُ وَالْحِكْمَةِ, and teaching them the scripture and the wisdom, the how. How do we make salat? How do we make muamalat? How muasharat? The how of doing each and everything. Okay? Okay, so these are two ayats. Although before that they were manifest here, before the nuzul of Islam, before the sending of the Quran, they were in manifest error. Like probably most of us were, either before we accepted Islam or before we came to know what Islam actually wants from us, whether we're born in a Muslim family or not. Okay? So keeping these two ayats in mind, Surah Ali Imran 164. If we wanted to graphically illustrate that, roughly, maybe we could have something like this. My youngest daughter, I gave her this project while she was a student in art school. And so she came up with this. So everybody make dua for her that she, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes her like that, and all my kids and all my grandchildren, all the Muslims of the Ummah, inshallah. Okay, so we're going to do a little exercise. And what we're going to do in light of those two ayats, and I'm going to again, give you another diagram which is going to look like this. But I want you just to focus on the diagram for a minute. And I'm not going to explain this, and I want you to form groups, okay? So what we're going to do is, ladies also and the men, we're going to form groups of maybe 5, 6, 7, whatever. We've got a big masjid, alhamdulillah. And we're going to do this exercise collectively. So I want all the groups to make a group. Everybody's going to join in and discuss this. And then at the end of the exercise, somebody from a few of the groups will present their findings, okay? So here is the exercise. And somebody take pictures of this exercise once it's all up on the board, right? Because we don't have a manual, so you just have to use that from your phone, okay? So what do we see here? What's the big picture here? Just think about it, discuss that. What's the big picture? What's the main theme we're seeing? Okay? Number 2, identify the parts of the tree. That shouldn't be very difficult, but it's important for its own reason. Number 3, how did this tree bear fruit? Did it just happen like that, or there was a process? So if there was a process, what was it from the beginning to the end? Think about it. Where did it start, and then how did ultimately we get fruit? Okay? What were the elements? What were the factors involved? Okay, did everybody take a picture of that? That's the exercise. Okay? That's the exercise that you're going to do, inshallah. Got it? Okay, now we're going to go back to the tree. Can everybody see it? Can the ladies also see it up there? Can ladies, like if you can see it, you knock, knock on the window? Okay. Can you see like all these things that are written here? Fikr, Ma'rifah, Iman, Yaqeen, and so forth? Right? So probably what you want to do is take a picture of these two ayats also, because we don't have a manual. So let's go back to this one. Okay, take a picture of that, because you're going to use that ayat. Okay, got it? And then we're going to take a picture of this ayat. Okay, take a picture of that one. Okay, got it? Okay, now we're going to go back to the tree. So is the exercise, we understand it now, inshallah? Okay, it's now 3:16, okay? So we're going to do this up to 3:26, 10 minutes. So let's get right to work, and form our groups. So let's have some groups. Let's have, 6, 7 people over here. MashaAllah, we've got a nice big masjid. Everybody join in. This is a very important exercise. I think you're really going to enjoy it, and you're really going to benefit, inshallah. So quickly, let's form some groups. Anybody? MashaAllah. Youngsters can maybe join different groups, 1 youngster per group. That's the maximum that we want to have, Okay? Ladies also, make your groups. Yeah? Our chairman and chair ladies, they can also have a group, perhaps, Yeah. Good. And we want everybody to participate, please. Yeah, everybody, think about it, give your input. Any questions? If it's anything not clear, then ask me, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Yeah, wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Can we look at the exercise?
You want to see the exercise again?
Yeah.
Okay. There you go. You want to take a picture of that? Ladies, take a picture of that also, okay? You got it?
Yeah.
Okay. Hashim. Ogya, come. Finish. Very good. Okay, I suppose if we wanted to have a PhD thesis, I think we have a good mawad here, but since we don't have time for that, we'll have to make do with the time that we have. Okay, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So let us gather again. Now we'd like to have one volunteer from the men's side, one from the ladies' side, and give us your findings. Who's going to be first? Do we have volunteers? Your group wants to volunteer? Okay. Bismillah.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So first off, I could be wrong. So please, I could be wrong, but please, I could be wrong in my explanation.
We're all going to be wrong.
So,
Allah knows best because it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's example, and so there's so much there. So, yeah,
Alhamdulillah.
whatever you can.
So going over the first question, right? What is this tree? So this tree is, as the verse of the Quran mentioned, the kalimatu tayyiba. That's the tree itself, a shajara. Which is the second part of it is, So this is the tree of Kalimat Tayyiba, as the Sheikh quoted the verse from the Quran, right? So the tree itself is called Kalimat Tayyiba itself. And then regarding its parts, the roots is the second verse that he quoted from Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam.
Just mention the parts. We don't have to ask what they do. We'll look at what they do later. Just let's identify them.
So it's a roots, which is the job description of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and the stem, which is the abudiyah, the whole objective of life, deen. And then the third one are the branches containing the aqaid, ibadat, mu'ashrat, mu'amalat, and akhlaqiyat.
Okay.
Yes, those are the three.
And what else?
And then, the fruits, right, which is
Main thing.
Yes, which is going to, of course, come into an existence with the implementation of those.
Okay, great. Now the third, most important question. How did it produce the fruit?
The implementation, that's what I'm saying. So the implementation of those amal, so all those.
So how did it happen? Did they just came, or what happened? Was there a process?
Yes.
Just all of a sudden we implemented?
No, there was of course, a gradual process, right?
So does this diagram give us an idea about that gradual process?
Yes, it does. Bottom-up approach. Bottom-up approach.
Did you discuss that with your group?
Kind of, but not this specific part.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
That's great.
Exactly.
That's great. Jazakumullah khair. Okay, let's hear from the ladies. One group from the ladies. They always do better than the men, so, yeah. We'll hear from them, or if you don't want to, if you don't want to actually, speak, we can also send something that you've written. That's also okay. Yeah, what's that? Oh, good. MashaAllah. Excellent. Excellent. That was the art of delegation. I congratulate the ladies. As I said, they always come up with stuff better than the men. They've delegated, to solve this problem. Yeah, go ahead.
So the tree is a strong tree and a healthy tree, and it has a strong roots and branches and a trunk. And the roots are like the dawah and the...
So these are the parts of the tree?
Yes, and then the trunk has the Hudaybiyah, and the branches have the branches have adab, akhlaq, ibadah, muamalat, and muasharat. And then the fruits come when you implement everything in the tree.
Yeah.
And so that's basically it.
So you don't want to talk about that implementation? How do we do that? How does that happen? Any idea about that?
We like do dawah and
Like Dawud, yeah.
we do dawah and we have adab and akhlaq and we do a lot of ibadah and muamalat and muasharat and follow the sunnah and the sharia and do nasiha with others and have yaqeen and iman
Yeah.
and do talim and tarbiyah and dawah.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah. Wonderful, MashaAllah. Mubarak. Okay, we don't have much time. Otherwise, we'd like to hear from everybody because everybody has some wonderful input. So, number one, let me say that this is not my example. I have nothing to do with this, but this is an example from the Quran. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as He mentions, gives us these examples, لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَذَكَّرُونَ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ, to think about it, to reflect on these things. So let's do a little reflection here. So I think you got that right. You know, like what's the big picture here? This is a picture, it's a diagram of the whole comprehensive life of Ubudiyya, basically. You know, we talked about Ubudiyya is all branches of life, all activities, all roles, and for that we've been created. So if we have kalima and it's operationally working, so it's like we're just constantly producing these fruits. Sometimes it's muasharat, sometimes muamalat, ibadat, akhlaq, so forth. Now, the beginning of a tree starts from where? The roots. Roots, right? And roots need nutrition. They need nutrients, right? And it's interesting that all plants, every type of tree, every type of plant has 3 macronutrients that it requires. Who studied biology? Okay, what are the 3 macronutrients of the plants? Nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. Okay? So 3 macronutrients. Human beings also have 3 macronutrients. Interesting. What are they? Protein, carbohydrates, and fat. Micronutrients is all types of minerals and vitamins and all types of things, other elements. But macronutrients, 3. This tree also has 3 macronutrients. Dawat, ta'aleem, tarbiyah. Okay, a little bit on dawat. We mentioned a little bit earlier, but let's just make sure we understand this. You know, some people think dawat is everything. Anything we say is dawat. Everything you say is not dawat. Dawat is specific. Dawat ilallah. To invite to Allah. To invite to those actions which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala likes. Amal. Dawat to amal. And dawat from this world to the next. Dawat ila al-akhirah. Wallahu yad'u ila dar salam. Right? And we talked about tarbiyah. That is a specific type of effort to change the animalistic qualities, the bad qualities for the good, the praiseworthy qualities. That process, that's tarbiyah. Ta'aleem, how to do everything. The how of each and every of our actions. So, let me ask you, which of these needs to start first? I mean, of these nutrients, these macronutrients, they all at one time, or is there like one that starts and then others follow, or how does it work? Tarbiyah is first? Dawah. Let's look at the lives of the prophets. The first thing they started with was what? Ya ayyuhan nas i'budullah ma lakum min ilahin ghayruh. Afala tattaqun. First, they used to invite to Allah because we're the material paradigm. Remember that? Everybody's looking at their bank account. Everybody's looking at their job, their material existence. So we need to wake up. Dawat. There's Allah. Look around you. Where did you come from? Where are you going? There's mold. Dawat, wake up. Tanbih. Now we're woken up. Okay, now what do we do? Dawat, ta'aleem, tarbiyah. Ta'aleem, tarbiyah. So, that's one. Number 2, are these nutrients, be it a plant, be it a human being, it's a one-time thing or it's a continuous process? Continuous. So if this tree doesn't get macronutrients continuously, what happens? It's going to start dying. And what's the first thing that's going to happen? What's the first thing that's going to go on the tree if it doesn't get these nutrients? Fruit. Fruit is going to go. Then what happens? Branches are going to shrivel up, and then ultimately, that's going to go, and then ultimately it'll die. So similarly, if there's no dawah, ta'aleem, tarbiyah going on every day, this is what's going to happen. We're going to die. The fruits, the actions, the a'mal are not going to be produced. And then ultimately even the wherewithal to do those things is going to diminish until Iman, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us all, completely dies, and that's the end of the story. Right? Okay, next thing, you've noticed these fikr, ma'rifat, iman, yaqeen, all these things. Are those just mentioned randomly, or is there a sequence that's intended here? Is there a sequence here? There is a sequence. Should be, but it actually doesn't happen like that. Do you become mukhlis in the beginning? Is ikhlas so easy to say, look, be mukhlis. Okay, I'm mukhlis. Does it happen like that? Imam Ghazali, rahmatullahi alayhi, he said, ta'allamna li ghayri Allah, thumma aballahu ila an yakuna lahu. Ta'allamna li ghayri Allah. We studied all these things. He was actually the rector of the biggest university, Islamic university in the world. And he realized that, do I have ikhlas or not? And he left the whole thing, said, I don't think I do. Can you imagine? With that position. So he took off and in ghaib, disappeared and spent the next 10 years in the Manara in Damascus. Nobody knew who he was, where he was, to learn ikhlas. Allah. So it's not an easy thing to do. Anyway, so first thing that happens when we give da'wat and this process starts, the first thing that happens is fikr. We start thinking, oh. And if we keep on thinking, and we're going to do an exercise on this after Asr, inshallah. Okay? Thinking, fikr. So that fikr, if we start thinking about the creation, it will lead us to understand something about the Creator. Now we start thinking about the Creator, now we start, realizing His ni'mat, His qudrat, and all this, so we start developing iman. If we continue the process, it becomes yaqeen, certainty, and then you get ikhlas. If we're not connected with Allah, how can we be sincere to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? We have to know Him, we have to be connected to Him, we have to be, attentive, And then if we become sincere for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then and only then we're going to really be sincere to His creation. People have this thing, it's all about, huquq al-ibad. It's all about serving humanity. Wait a minute. Humanity needs to be served because it's Allah's humanity. He created it. If we don't serve the Creator and we don't have that concept right, how are we going to serve His creation? Sustainably. Okay, it might feel good for a day or two, but then after a while, things get tough, it was a good idea, but. But if we're doing it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if it means give our life, doesn't matter. They appreciate it, they don't appreciate it. Anybody shows, any effect or impact or not, we're going to continue serving humanity because Allah wants us to. Or because it feels good or it's a nice thing to do. So it's all this process. And then I've mentioned Sharia. People say, hey, wait a minute, Sharia should be down there in the beginning. We have to, tanfeed Sharia, come on, we have to enforce Sharia. I say, okay, wait, hang on a minute. Can we just shove akhlaq and behavior down people's throats? I have a challenge, and that challenge is, show me any point in human history that legislation changed human behavior. Anytime. Just show me. If you can, then I'll change my stance. Otherwise, right? I'll give you an example. We have a period called the Roaring Twenties in America. Have you ever heard of that? The Roaring Twenties. Why do they call it the Roaring Twenties? Well, one thing, it was roaring economically, but more importantly, it was roaring in another thing, because that was the time of the prohibition. Who's heard of the prohibition? Legislation. legislation was passed by the United States government that alcohol is a crime. And it is. We know that. But nobody else knew that, and nobody else was ready to accept that except the government. So they wanted to force this legislature on the United States public, and did they buy that? Absolutely not. And so what they did, rather than buying it legally, they bought it illegally. So people were making it in their cellars and, you know, in illegal factories, and then we get the start of the mafia. Everybody's heard of the mafia? Do you know where it came from? That's where it came from. There was no mafia before that. Wrong legislature produced the mafia. Think about that. Okay? So now, nobody's going to stop that, so they're going to do it illegally. And then they started killing each other because this family's turf was, you know, overriding this turf, and they were getting my customers, and he was getting his. So there was wars going on in the country. Every major city of this country was flowing with blood from the gang wars of these mafia families, you know. And then the government realized that we've made a blunder, so let's go back to, you know, ground one, but it's too late. Because already, you know, this group has, developed, and they're earning millions in illicit money through these activities. So once you put alcohol back to its original status, so now we'll get into drugs, now we'll get into pornography, now we'll get into whatever. And rather than making millions, now we're making billions, if not trillions. So wrong legislation not only doesn't work, it backfires. We need to understand that. Okay? So therefore, Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam also introduced prohibition. Did it backfire? No. It worked unbelievably. Because that legislature didn't come one time. We have a thing called tadrij fit tashri'a. You know, if we had more time, I'd explain. It's very interesting how alcohol was actually, and alcohol was a bigger thing in Arab culture than it is in American culture. It was like, you wake up and not like a wake-up coffee, it's a wake-up wine. It's a morning wine, it's a late morning wine. And they all had different names for the different times that you drink wine, because that was more available than water. So when the prohibition came for wine, who had it in his mouth, he spit it. Who had it in his hand, he threw it. Who had it in his house, he threw it in the street. There was a caravan coming from Syria. The whole caravan was wine. Right? I mean, that was a big deal. That was a staple thing in their life. So then what happened? Some Sahabi was coming out of Medina, and then he saw this caravan. He said, hey, you don't know? Alcohol is prohibited now. Oh, yeah? So he just took out his dagger. He didn't go to Mufti Saab, come on, really, I got all my capital tied up here, come on, let's have some solution here, Adin Yusr, come on, That's not their thinking. Because, why? Because they had gone through this process with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam more than 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 years. You see? So when the order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came, they were abids, they were ubudiyah, they were trees of ubudiyah. And pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was the most beneficial, was the most profitable business that they knew. Any chance to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if it means, sacrificing their entire capital and their entire profits as well. And then when we say sunnah, so like sharia is like tilka hududullah. These are the limits. Don't cross. Minimum, performance level. Sunnah, for example, I buy something for 1,000 grams, 1 kilo of something. So I have to be given 1,000 grams, not 999. And I don't have to get 1,001. I need 1,000 grams, right? Nabi alayhi salatu sunnah was zinhu wa arjah. Give him his, due, and give him extra. Do we ever do that? Especially in the Muslim countries. We squeeze the poor seller like a sponge, and get every last drop out of him, and then we think we're very sharp, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. So Nabi alayhi salaam's sunnah is above and beyond the minimum performance level. Excellence of the highest nature. Okay? And then, when this process keeps on going, then the whole tree becomes imbued with the sibghat Allah, the sibgha of ubudiyah. And then all these branches have been sprouting and they give these various fruits from time to time. Now the last thing that I want to point out, and then we'll be finished with this. Let's listen to the adhan. And then
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر، الله أكبر.
Allahu Akbar, Allah.
لا إله إلا الله.
لا إله إلا الله المربح به الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة عاتمه بالوسيلة والفضيلة والبركة. إنك لا تخلف الميعاد رضينا بالله ربا اللهم نسألك العافية في الدنيا والآخرة وصلى الله وسلم. So we have a break, but just before we take the break, just a couple of minutes, one last very important point. And that is the top of the tree. Trees that we generally see, the first thing that we see in a tree is what? The top branches or the bottom branches? Usually the top two. There are trees that are different, but most of the trees, first you see the top branches, they start coming up, and then later on these ones grow. So the top branches of this tree is what? Ibadat. Nabi Alayhi Sallam also mentions a hadith, Bunya al-Islam ala khams. Islam is based on 5 pillars. Everybody knows those, right? What are they? Shahada, Salat, Som, Hajj, fasting. Sum Ramadan. They're all what? Ibadat. So, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says Islam is based on 5 pillars, and they're all ibadat. What happened to all of these? No muamalat, no muasharat, no akhlaq, adab, halal, haram, sharia, nothing. So how do we reconcile that? Huh? Well, we'll get to that. The whole thing is shahada. We said this is the example of kalima tayyibah in the heart of a mu'min. So the whole picture, this is all shahada. The whole thing. Okay? So how do we reconcile that? Ibadat, this is all ibadat, nothing else mentioned.
But if you stick to your ibadah, then rest 4 will come into your life.
Ah, now we're getting close. If we say, for example, this masjid is built on 20 pillars. Okay? So what we do is we make 20 pillars and then we call everybody for the grand opening. And they all come and there's only 20 pillars. There's no roof, there's no presentation, there's no imam, there's nothing. And so everybody comes and, grand opening. Opening of what, No, all the pillars are there, just like the hadith, right? So the hadith doesn't say that Islam, the entirety of Islam is 5 things. It says it's based on 5 foundational things. Okay? Now the other side of the coin, suppose, we don't see any pillars actually in this masjid. So suppose we just, say, look, why do we waste the time and the money on these pillars? Just put up the masjid, right? And, make the whole structure and, we'll save 6 months' time and we'll save around $200,000. That's a great idea. So we make the masjid, no foundation, we put up everything, we have grand opening, the place is packed, and the ladies, mashallah, are packed on the top. The Kashif gives this really, roaring, grand opening speech. Everybody gives a Allahu Akbar, and the whole building starts to shake and collapses. And that's the end of it. Why? Because there was no foundation. That's what's happening to most of these Islamic movements. There's no foundation. We're not founded on these pillars. So it just collapses. When the going gets rough, we lose it. So, last question is, why these and not those or any other for that matter? Why is ibadat the foundation?
They're all related to the rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
They're all related to?
The rights of Allah subhanahu wa
The rights of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Well, there's also rights of humans as well, because zakat, that's also, but kind of, yeah.
Because if you do ibadah, the rest of the stuff comes in place.
That's right. Is there a hikmah? Is there some sort of sir, some sort of wisdom behind that? Our purpose of life is what? وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ عُبُودِيَّة. What of these things is going to train us in ubudiyah, to become slaves? Well, I'm not to train you to be a slave. Martial art, adab. Here in America, people generally have better adab than we do. Have you noticed that? Yeah. Unfortunately. So people have the best of, they can do, but the things that will train us to become slaves are ibadat. That's the nature of them. It's only, there's no other purpose. Salat trains us totally, outwardly, inward, every part of our body, everything. Zakat trains us how to use our resources. It's not mine, it belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Hajj is a total training, Fasting, subhanAllah. What kind of training is subhanAllah? So, these ibadat, so that's why we're not going to have the rest of the thing unless these ibadat are extremely strong and firm and in place. So, inshallah, after Salat al-Asr, we'll wind up this session and we'll go into this and we'll go into the Ruhani things and we'll have another very important exercise for us, inshallah. Okay? Subhanakallah wa bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.
Inshallah, we have Asr Salah and then we have some refreshments for the brothers here and the sisters for sure. So after that, we'll get in, inshallah, we'll start around 4:20, inshallah, after Asr.
Start Asr at 4:20?
No, Asr is at 4, and then we start the session at 4:20, inshallah.